Hello, everyone, and welcome to this episode of the ITAP Connect series, where we bring you insights, conversations with speakers, and opportunities to connect with other participants. We are pleased to collaborate with ASBIL for this episode that focuses on how industries and businesses can leverage Industry 4.0 technologies to attain smart city or smart society outcomes in terms of business performance and also benefits for society. So to kick off today's proceedings, we have a short video on ASBIL's underlying philosophy and approach to realizing the values of smart society. Let's have a look at that.
Our world is being transformed. Climate change is accelerating. There is population growth in emerging countries and there is increased urbanization. All around the world, we are experiencing a new normal with digitalization penetrating all aspects of life. How can we contribute toward the achievement of a sustainable society? Founded in Japan in 1906, ASBIL provides comprehensive services including planning, consultancy, development, manufacturing, and engineering through more than 50 subsidiaries around the globe. ASBIL operates in 3 core business segments. Building automation helps contribute to the comfort and energy efficiency of offices and other large-scale buildings. Advanced automation provides measurement and control technologies for factories and plants. Life automation provides services related to living environments, essential utilities like gas and water, life sciences research, and the pharmaceutical and medical fields. Our philosophy of human-centered automation is the foundation of our business activities. We aim to both resolve social issues and achieve sustainable growth through management that contributes in series to the achievement of a sustainable society and the SDGs. Preserving the Earth's environment and solving energy-related problems is one of our essential goals for the SDGs. ASBIL offers products and services to reduce global carbon dioxide emissions from office buildings, plants, and factories. For example, our automation technology helps reduce carbon dioxide emissions by limiting the consumption of electricity, steam, compressed air, and other resources at plants and factories. We have set emission reduction targets for greenhouse gas emitted through our business activities and throughout the entire supply chain by 2030. And by 2050, ASBIL aims to achieve substantially zero greenhouse emissions. ASBIL declared support for the Task Force on Climate-Related Financial Disclosure Recommendations on gaining an accurate understanding of the impact of climate change on business operations. ASBIL provides environmentally friendly products and services and is committed to initiatives related to reducing, reusing, and recycling waste. We also strive to realize a safe and comfortable society with new automation. ASBIL is contributing by offering solutions like its automated demand response system for smart cities. This is one of the keys to utilizing renewable energy sources without sacrificing the wellness of building occupants. Through our corporate activities, we fulfill our responsibilities to society across our supply chain and contribute to local communities. We strengthen our foundation through health and well-being management and continuous learning. With more than 100 years of history and a sterling reputation for providing optimum solutions developed in Japan, ASBIL is committed to contributing in series to the achievement of a sustainable society.
So there we have it from a broad perspective. Let's hear now from Anju Jaswal, Global Executive Member and Managing Director of the Strategic Planning and Development Office for Southeast Asia at ASBIL Corporation, who will speak on delivering win-wins, how I4.0 adoption drives industrial performance and positive social outcomes. Anju, please.
Hello everyone, I'm Anju Jaswal from ASBIL Corporation. Thank you for inviting me to deliver the keynote address on the topic of delivering win-wins, how I4.0 adoption drives industrial performance and positive social outcomes. The world has endured much in the recent years, rapidly increasing global temperatures leading to extreme weather, rising income inequality, deepening geopolitical tensions, and now a global COVID-19 pandemic. These events are linked in their systemic disruption of the status quo. They affect our health, environment, society, and economies. This disruption is, however, also a catalyst for innovation. The impact of COVID-19 on economies, communities, and public health may be the spark that galvanizes cities to find creative, multidisciplinary approaches to turn smart cities to smart societies. Smart is not just about technology. Although technological development enables new facilities that were not available before, smart solutions must enable citizens themselves to actively produce societal value. Redefining smart cities with a focus on creating quality of life for and by citizens implies creating a human-centric smart society. Placing humans at the center means understanding the characteristics of what makes us human, like our empathy and emotions, our drive to connect, collaborate, and socialize, and reimagining the way our technological solutions operate around these human characteristics. But how can we achieve this? How can we achieve shared, efficient use of resources to create higher societal value? ASBIL aims to accomplish this with comprehensive and interlinked solutions to improve people's quality of life. Before we step into the details of what ASBIL can offer, let me briefly explain who we are. ASBIL Group has its headquarters in Japan. Since our establishment in 1906, we have pursued measurement and control technologies, delivering solutions to our customers in offices, production sites, and daily life through 3 business segments: building automation, advanced automation, and life automation. In pursuit of human-centered automation, our aim is to be a corporate group that solves a wide range of problems to contribute to the development of a sustainable society. ASBIL's products and solutions are installed in 93.5% of the buildings that are taller than 170 meters in Japan. In Marunouchi, around Tokyo Station, 78% of the buildings have ASBIL's products and solutions. The ASBIL Group has been setting the SDGs as a compass to direct our own business activities. In the areas that we tackle through our business, where the focus is on automation technology, our goals are preserving the Earth's environment and solving energy-related problems. In the areas that we tackle through our general corporate activities, our goals are fulfilling our responsibilities to society throughout our supply chain, a goal that we will realize together with our business partners and local communities, and strengthening our corporate foundation to solve societal problems through health and well-being management and continuous learning. In doing so, we aim to contribute to the creation of a sustainable society. With more than 100 years of history and a sterling reputation for providing optimum automation solutions, ASBIL aims to transform technology-driven smart cities to human-centric smart society. ASBIL solutions contribute to smart society through smart workplace solutions, smart building automation, and smart area management. The Intelligent Building Management System, or IBMS platform, integrates systems in workplaces and enhances them to be more customized and personalized. Multiple subsystems of building services can also be integrated into the IBMS platform for seamless communication and data collection, to allow sophisticated controls, which translates to better customer experience within the buildings. In addition, ASBIL's IBMS platform has the capability to manage multiple buildings simultaneously, utilizing information from each building to benefit the city as a whole. Let me give you an example of smart workplace solutions. In the current environment and in the future, there will be a demand for measures against the risk of infections. In order to prevent infections, it is important to avoid the 3 C's: crowded places, close contact settings, and confined and enclosed places. In the new normal, all buildings should have a plan for an emergency response. And secure solutions for commercial buildings, including offices, starting from the building's entrance. At the entrance, an AI temperature device will check the body temperature and whether a mask is worn. An intermediate room would ensure that an infected person is prevented from going beyond the entrance. An AI image authentication solution will provide contactless access to the meeting rooms. Infrared array sensors will be used to do constant monitoring to prevent the occurrence of the 3 Cs. As well as control systems will provide customization of air conditioning and pressure based on the usage of the office. In the office space, infrared array sensors detect how crowded the room is and how close the distance between the people is, so that the office managers can get notifications to avoid crowded or close contact setting. Our demand control ventilation solution also provides adjustment of outdoor air intake based on occupancy. When there are more people, outdoor air intake will increase and vice versa. Increase in outdoor air intake reduces the amount of carbon dioxide in the air, thus reducing fatigue and improving productivity. Interface with the face recognition system can be used for contact tracing if infections were to occur. When there is someone suspected of having an infection, a meeting room can be converted into an isolation room with a touch of a switch. It is necessary to constantly maintain negative pressure in that space compared to adjacent spaces. As general office spaces do not have a pressure difference between adjacent spaces, variable air volume devices that can maintain invert airflow need to be installed. This as-built control method, which is already implemented in leading hospitals in Tokyo, will prevent the leakage of air from the infected section to external areas, thus controlling the spread of infection. Let us now look into smart building automation. As-built's IBMS platform supports citizens and clients through not just data integration, but also delivering committed values through the execution of smart projects. Big data collected from IoT devices in individual subsystems are analyzed within the as-built's IBMS platform. Individual subsystems such as HVAC, lighting, room booking, elevators, security, and car park can be integrated to the IBMS. In the digital twin IBMS interface, building structural model and M&E equipment model are incorporated into the IBMS. This creates a digital building representation that combines dynamic data, such as generated by the technical systems, with the building's static structural data. This combination of static and dynamic data creates a multitude of new application possibilities. It provides real-time understanding of how a building is performing, enabling immediate adjustment to optimize efficiency. We also have several solutions that contribute towards smart area management. As-built's IBMS can connect remote BMSs in a smart city. Real-time management of global assets can be done via a dashboard at headquarters through a single interface. This system is scalable to integrate future buildings via industry open protocols. Management at headquarters can track and benchmark building performance and plan better building operations. Virtual power plants are gaining attention as a way to expand the use of renewable energy, which in turn provides benefits such as mitigating climate change. A virtual power plant functions by aggregating distributed energy resources. Using a virtual power plant to adjust the energy supply-demand balance with demand response requires advanced energy management techniques. As-built was selected to participate in the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industries Virtual Power Plant Construction Demonstration Project. As-built's automated demand response system uses building energy management systems to network the facilities of consumers of electricity in order to automatically control electricity demand. Carrying out control based on supply and demand enables the virtual creation and distribution of electricity, similar to how a power plant does so physically. By intelligently controlling electricity provided to consumers, the automated demand response system can aid in energy distribution in cases such as when there are fluctuations of renewable energy output. This contributes to the reduction of construction costs, maintenance costs, and carbon dioxide emissions of power plants as they respond to supply and demand from electric power companies. As-built also provides solutions for optimization of district heating and cooling systems. A district cooling system has been applied in a number of countries where chilled water from a central plant is delivered through a distribution network to groups of buildings in an urban district. For DHCS plant optimization, the historical load trend and weather forecast is used by the IBMS to predict the next 24-hour demand. IBMS uses the next 24-hour demand and optimum equipment model to provide an optimized operation plan and control to the DHCS plant operator. The recommendations are made considering the conditions in the energy contract between the DHCS plant company and building users. This allows a highly efficient and profitable operation of the plant. For realizing a smart factory, we have already developed innovative products such as Smart Industrial Safety System through an online anomaly monitoring system that can detect signs of equipment anomalies with accuracy greater than that of skilled operators, and a new maintenance system that diagnoses valves during plant operation online. As a reference case, let me introduce to you Minato Mirai 21, a large district in Yokohama City in Japan. Minato Mirai 21 is one of the districts where our cutting-edge solutions are implemented. The area in red represents customers who use Asbill's BMS and controls in Minato Mirai, Yokohama. Asbill is contributing from building level to city level to society level in Yokohama. We are working and living in a time of unparalleled technology innovation and invention. This technology revolution is marked by a series of exponential technological advances, including cloud, artificial intelligence, Internet of Things, and more. Individually and collectively, these technologies represent vast potential for the future. This future also comes with a broader responsibility. As we apply digital technologies and operate with ever-increasing intelligence, traditional boundaries between business and personal are also dissolving. Our solutions are moving closer to the center of people's lives and benefiting society as a whole. In Society 5.0, I'm hoping that your needs are finally differentiated and met by providing the necessary products and services in the required amounts, thereby optimizing resources. This is a society centered on each and every person.
Thanks, Andre, for the presentation and for setting some context for our following discussion. Before we transition to the panel session, we'd like to run a quick audience poll to get a better sense of who has joined us here today. So we have 3 quick questions that should take under a minute to complete, all right, before we flash the results on screen. So the audience, your answers will help our speakers have a better idea of where you're coming from and also your interests, so that they can contextualize any examples that they bring up later and also help this discussion make it more directly relevant to you, all right? So the questions are, you see them popping up in front of you now. Objectives, obviously. What are your concerns and challenges with adopting Industry 4.0, and also where your organization is in terms of implementing various kinds of smart technologies. All right, so this should be quite quick. So I'm going to count down. All right, 5 seconds. So 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, everyone ready? Let's see the results. Oh, wow. Okay. So a lot of you are here to learn more about industry trends. Is good. How they could apply to your business. Right. The second question, cost of, oh, okay, hang on. Now, at the bottom, a lot of you do not know how or where to start with your business transformation. That's very good to hear, in the sense that we know that you're thinking about it. So that's the first point, right? And that's encouraging. But where to go next, that is the question. So maybe our speakers will attend to that in terms of when they discuss later. And also cost of transformation is a top of mind concern as well. And finally, where you are in implementing different kinds of technologies. So quite evenly split between those who are not sure and also those who have already done something. So that's also a good information point. All right. So hope our panelists will take note of this in the course of the discussion. All right. Okay, so with that, let's bring on our speakers for our following panel. They are Dr. Satish Lede, Senior Vice President and Head of Consulting at Frost & Sullivan APAC, who will serve as our lead discussant. We also have with us Mr. Poyan Rajaman, Co-founder and Executive Director of Barguest Building Performance. Next up, we have Mr. Sia Tien Ho, CEO of Heng Kiap Industries. And finally, we have Mr. Philip Xiao, Managing Director of Variance Asia Pacific. Okay, cool. So we have a great lineup of speakers who have a lot to say on the topic, and I know because I've spoken to them before. So please feel free to interact with them and post your questions for them using the Q&A function, please. Questions will be tackled as they occur and where relevant to the discussion. So with that, let's get into the discussion as I hand things over to Satish. Perhaps we can have him start off by briefly sharing his take on what smart society is before we hear from the other speakers as well. We are also interested to hear what you, the audience, think smart society means. So please go ahead and share your views using the chat function. All right, everyone. So over to you, Satish.
Hey, thank you, Jane. And a very good afternoon to everybody who has joined today. I have a very distinguished panel around me. So we are not going to do a very formal panel kind of discussion. It will be more, giving insights from each one of us based on the work that we have been doing so far, and also taking in inputs from all of you based on your questions and observations to see how we can steer this discussion towards understanding what it means to be in a smart society, and more importantly, what does it mean as far as your own business is concerned, and how do you apply some of these learnings to your existing situations that you have. So let me start the discussion around society, on the smart society. Last year, we had a very interesting project, and not surprisingly from a Japanese client. We are a research and advisory firm, and the challenge for us was to define Society 2050 and to put in place how the society will look like in the year 2050, and from there derive what are potential opportunities for our client starting over the next few years. Now, that was a very interesting topic, and it really took us quite a bit of time to, kind of get around this whole timeline of 2050, because it's one, maybe you can predict something in the next 4 to 5 years. Of course, nothing like COVID, if it comes and disrupts everything that you have thought about as far as your planning and strategy is concerned. But try to look at a very long-term view in terms of how society is going to evolve as a whole. Right? So based on that, I think today I want to make some observations around when we talk about smart society, what does it mean in terms of that context? Plus, how do we really bring the whole concept of smart society to something which is very real for you today, and how do you implement it as part of your growth solution, right? Now, one of the important things that we have been doing at Frost & Sullivan is to look at what we call megatrends. And megatrends are typically transformational changes which are happening in the environment. But it is more important to drill down to what we call a megatrend into what we call a micro opportunity. Right? So you might have megatrends, and I think in the previous presentation we did refer to a lot of them about urbanization, about smart cities, about a lot of these changes which are going to happen in the future. But for you and your organization to be able to bring it down to the level of what we call a micro opportunity on what do I do next? How do I steer my company into these important changes which are happening in the environment? I think that's a very important concept that you need to think about as you begin to decide on how do you really start with this whole idea of a smart society, and how do you bring it in context to your current line of business. So when you look at smart society, I think there are 3 very important pillars to look at. Right? The first one is the physical world. And I think we saw a lot of that in Asbil's presentation as well. it related to infrastructure, to buildings, to transportation systems, the entire physical world that is going to be built around smarts, around the whole smart concept. The second and more important part is the people, the citizens, and how they begin to fit into and create the smart society in the future. How do we enable them? How do we take into consideration their, the changes that are happening in demographics, the social causes that they believe in? How do they identify themselves with the entire concept of a smart society? And the third important pillar is the government and the political establishment. How do they drive the overall direction as far as the implementation of smart societies is concerned? So through the confluence of all of these three important pillars, we see the development of society, the future smart society happening. And each one of us is going to be a participant into this development. So with that, let me start and kickstart this discussion. I think Industry 4.0 is one of the important tools which is going to take us into what we call the smart journey of the smart society. And we as a company have also been looking at the whole development of Industry 4.0, the different solutions that are now coming related to smart, to use of technology, use of connectivity, and so many solutions which are being supported through the development of the Industry 4.0 ecosystem. So there is a big connect between Industry 4.0 and the smart society that we are going to talk about. So, with that introduction from my side, and the kind of work that we are doing with our clients, especially related to bringing in these concepts of Industry 4.0 and smart, and looking at what these opportunities are. Let me open it to the other panelists. I know they are coming from very different perspectives, but it will be very good to hear what each one of you is doing, and how do you connect to this whole smart society paradigm.
Yeah, thanks, Satish. Again, box building performance offers a automation solution that reduces energy consumption. Now, where I found there's a link with what you were talking about is to take this very broad concept of smart society and go to micro opportunity. And also, again, in the poll, we saw how people were thinking about how to start small. Where do we begin? So in my view is working with people inside the company that are closest to the problem and allowing them to choose solution that can help the company take initial steps is the way to go there. For example, for us, when we work with Hewlett-Packard, they have managed to decide what is important for them. Carbon footprint reduction is extremely important for them. They create a role in having an energy manager that then goes around and looks at what are the specific problems across different business units and break them down to small problems to be solved by new technology providers. And that creates early wins for them to show progress along environmental axis, for example, that is important for them, as well as, again, business dimension, which is if you reduce your carbon footprint, energy consumption, there's positive in terms of cost reduction. So for me, the link that you were talking about is to take that environmental large strategic goal and break it down to what is it that a company could do at micro level. That's one way to go to. We'd love to hear how Syakiana and Philip are looking at this.
I'll jump right in. Okay, so our company, we start, charting everything forward with what we call the inevitable change. We are a plastic recycling company that we convert the locally, basically the local scrap, and we made that into, customized that into specialized material that we call smart plastic, and we export that. Now, at the same time, we know that recycling is good, but recycling uses too much of that electricity. So we also have a chemical recycling whereby we make our own diesel to generate our own electricity to power up our smart factory. Now, that's the journey that we have got to so far. But what is the inevitable change that we're going to see in that smart society? Now, this is what we see, that it's going to go to that full plastic circularity. I don't believe in a plastic-free society, but I believe in a plastic-neutral society through that circularity. And to piece that back to what you just mentioned, Poyan, because of the smart infrastructure that we have just heard, and because of the inclusiveness at the micro level, that we will start to consume plastic very, very differently, and then the plastic will then be collected from our household at a household level, and the building is smart enough to actually track, what has been collected, how it has been collected, how we separate all that. And then once this part is done, recycler will comes in and then convert this into useful material again. And this control circularity will bring a lot of benefit when we talk about the sustainability and the to enable the smart society. Another interesting things to think about, ocean pollution. It's a big, big topic. It's a big, big discussion. A report that's actually published by Systemic that basically say by 2040, if we do not change the way we consume plastic, our ocean will pile up 3 times more plastic in the ocean. So whatever we have right now, it's going to pile up 3 times more by 2040. However, if we were to work together in an inclusive, collaborative, and intelligent manner, by 2040, we do these 8 things together, and we will be able to clean 80% of whatever that's already in the ocean. So very, very interesting things, for us to think about, what we need to do for the next 20 years to enable that smart society.
Can I just ask you, for you, your factory, does that investment in, turning plastic into sustainable diesel, does that make financial sense too? Or have you taken a view that this is an environmental choice I make and potentially customers will, pay a premium for that?
It's a combination of both. If we were to do it as just one standalone chemical recycling factory, it will take a longer time, to justify that this is feasible. So what we have done is come up with an integrated model whereby the good quality material, we can convert that into high quality smart material. And then those that is, we basically look into the inherent mechanical properties, the inherent chemical properties, and the inherent calorific properties. And from each and every one of these plastic stream that comes in, we then decide what would be the best mode of recycling in an integrated model. So that integration is very important to answer your question.
Philip, I think you're on mute.
For us, we actually find it kind of interesting, right? For Xiaqian, what you're actually focusing on is actually very specialized for recycling. As for variance itself, we actually have been spending our time working with some parts of SME from China, Hong Kong, some parts of Bangkok, and also in Malaysia. The challenge that comes into the digital transformation, especially for us focusing on IoT itself, both from hardware and software, is really kind of getting people to understand really, the comparison between how much you need to spend to actually invest, right? The TCO they get out of it, and also end of the day, how do you actually process the data, right? Going from that part of a business aspect and moving all the way into the smart society, or in this case, what we will have observed is more in terms of smart community. It's really how do you actually first educate the people in the workforce, right? To actually appreciate what you're doing. And as a result of that, how do they actually take ownership of the insights and be able to actually pass on to? In specific, if I can just take one of the examples, one of our clients who's actually in food manufacturing for biscuits, based in Klang in Malaysia, they actually have a lot of raw material going from food to tin, to actually tin cans, to cartons itself. Well, the challenge has always been, when you actually take all these materials in, right, and when you actually consume them, if there's any excess or rejected goods, it's always a matter of sustainability, right? How do you actually use it? Or in this case, sometimes how do you actually pass on to, because you are not able to actually, it costs more to actually send it back, that your workforce can actually use it, right? So there's a lot of open-ended questions which you need to kind of build the ability for the workforce to communicate. So that's one part of actually engaging and kind of passing on down the downline. Right, and then the other part about it is really going into the community so that they can actually get the awareness, so spread the information. And last thing about it is that throughout this whole process, there needs to be a way for people to get the information, so the medium, right? And in this case, when you talk about those people, especially in the area of manufacturing, right? You're not just talking about folks who are English educated, right? There are also people from foreigners who are actually working from the factory itself. They need to be told what to be done, right? So there needs to be equipment to enable them to actually understand how to appreciate as an employee, as a part of the company, right? And then be able to actually share this information and educate the rest of the folks, in the family itself. And there are things that we also get to the point where we look at it and say, okay, well, we have actually done those things for the client, and the client has actually understand. So for them, it's looking at the initial investment, right? How does it compare against the result from the as a result of the change for the company, and then take that as a factor of it and understand for those who are actually on the call itself, how do you actually translate some of these numbers into an impact to the employees as a result, and what kind of KPIs or metrics you should be using, which a lot of the folks, when you talk about from a starting point from the get-go, they are really looking in terms of how can I change something so that I can actually reduce specific cost or build productivity or efficiency accuracy, right? So we need to kind of really find a way to look at it and say, how do we actually focus on education, consistency, right? And in some ways, I would say the challenge has been, how do you inadvertently gamify, make the awareness and the process of learning such things more enticing, right? And then at the end of the day, when we're looking at it from a dollar cents point of view, right, there are people that will look at it and say, well, I understand, I'm aware, right? But what's the incentive? So again, it is a continuous process. And with regards to, point on what you're saying in terms of, building and saving, energy saving, right? That's something that people look at and say, well, I understand what the client or our company, the building has done, right? How can we actually kind of bring it down to the ground level where each of us, being an employee and the staff, the team members, and so on and so forth, can actually look at it and say, it matters to me. And that is the beginning of an individual person that starts to spread across into the community, and then eventually help to take this information further.
Yeah. Just to address, I think the first point you made about dollars and cents, I think that resonates with a lot of, even MNCs, if not even more with SMEs. Now, I believe in the energy side, what I know well, there are new business models that address that. So we offer our solution, for example, without any upfront cost. We take a portion of the savings that we achieve, which means it's net positive. If you think about solar now, solar panels, there are business models where they offer it without, again, upfront costs, selling you solar generated electricity at a discount to what you would be paying to SP Power or whoever your power provider is. So in that space, there starts coming new business model that allows people, again, to embark on this without any upfront investment and have net positive kind of financial impact. And that links to a question I see from the audience that says, guys, if our core business is not sustainability, like we are doing energy savings, CIACAN is doing recycling, what are our incentives to start working towards smart society? And to that is my feedback is a lot of our customers who do that, they have their own goals, meaning they have publicly said they're going to reduce the carbon benefit, but their customers in turn are requesting them to do. For example, if Apple is going up and say we're going to be sustainable, Apple itself doesn't produce, so it asks its chip manufacturers, like Micron, to be more sustainable, and then they are asking their suppliers in turn to become more sustainable. So embarking on this, besides having positive societal effect, is important for businesses to become more attractive to their own customers. So the writing is in the wall for me. Reversely, if people are not aligned with these goals, effectively you're carrying a liability forward. Meaning, once there is a requirement from your customer or change in legislation, as you see in Singapore, then you need to spend a lot of money to catch up. So I hope that has answered that question.
Yeah, I'd like to jump in here quickly as well. We're talking about this, and also to piece together what, Philip and Poyan just say earlier on. In our industry, plastic, for example, the entire industry used to be very product centric. It's all about making things faster, better, cheaper, bigger bow, and then we push it to the consumer in a B2B to C kind of manner. But the entire landscape is changing very, very quickly. And also because of the ocean pollution, the global pollution that we're seeing now, the landscape is changing so quickly that it evolves from a product centric to a life cycle centric. So basically, for example, our company, we have this collaborative model, this circular model whereby we bring the collectors, converters, co-creator that design the product, champions who are the big brands who communicate with last one is the conscientious consumer who basically start rejecting plastic. And over time, you start to see that consumers start to reject plastic if the industry is still operating on this linear consumption pattern. So the industry then start to shift to become a more circular, a more inclusive way of doing this. Now, if we look into plastic right now, our current consumption are very fossil based. We get the crude oil out, we make plastic product, distribute, consume. And then if we do not handle this properly, then it goes into landfill again, then it goes underneath the ground again. The circular model is done as such that everything stays above ground. Yeah, so you have this above ground circularity, just like air, water, and ice. Hydrocarbon operates the exact same way. It can go from plastic, diesel, petrochemical gases, electricity, and from a chemical point of view, theoretically, we could actually circulate and harness this hydrocarbon indefinitely. And this is the trend where the smart society is going towards. And now for us, it's just to think about how that, we see that this is something, this full circularity is going to happen. How are we going to make that happen faster, sooner? And along that direction, how can I secure a spot to basically draft or craft that life cycle consumption pattern?
So there's one question for you, which is asking the difference between the goals for smart society and ESG sustainability goals. So
Sure.
Is sustainability a part of the overall smart society, or how would you define, how do you see the interplay between both of them?
I think, yeah, I agree with you. ESG is a part of that. Going back to what Philip was saying earlier on, the plastic that we are getting in the future, it will be a lot more traceable. For example, in our company, we collect the ocean plastic, we convert it to material that basically complies with all the certification, make it into an award-winning chair, and then finally that a company will basically sell that chair. And we have a QR code that basically trace the entire chain of custody. Or basically, you will know the footprint is almost like a birth certificate of plastic. And along the way, not only you are tracking the journey it has gone through, you are also measuring the ESG impact. So what happens then is that we pass it to consumer to consume this. After consuming this product, we actually need the consumer to basically promise us that when they buy this louver chair, they will send it back to us so that we give it a second go and don't drop the ball. So what's going to happen in that future smart consumption of plastic would be, collector, pass it to, a converter, then pass to co-creator, champion, finally to the conscientious consumer and say, now I pass the ball to your hand. When you're done with the consumption, make sure that you send it back to us and we will do this indefinitely. And I think because if we are able to track that basically track the entire ESG impact, what kind of contribution that it's making from an environmental point of view, social point of view, how many jobs that it is actually creating, and governance. It has to comply within the standards that we need. And along the way, because we are measuring, tracking, then we might able to monetize from this. So the monetized part will come later. So in future, maybe a consumer that consume a red label soda because that red label soda provide the full circularity. Another green label soda doesn't do that. They're still on linear. Consumer will start to migrate from the linear consumption to the circular smart consumption. And that would be just a quick example for that, Dr. Satish.
So one of the interesting things I think Poyan also referred to that is, we always have this thing about having a business case, right? And I remember we started, researching about Industry 4.0 almost 7-8 years ago when it was launched out of Germany. And there were always questions in every event, every seminar that, what's the ROI? Where's the business case? And very surprisingly, I think the companies that really survived the virus, the pandemic better were those who had already implemented high levels of digitization in their operations. I think, that's a good example of, rather than looking at a business case only from the point of view of dollars and cents, to the larger dimension of what does it mean in terms of your organization moving towards, either sustainability or towards a smart society. I think that's an important point I just wanted to bring out as an addition to what Poyan mentioned.
I think definitely we've mentioned so far has always been very, very positive, right? But I would say that, with regards to what Siaken mentioned, on reusing products itself. Again, this is something that I find it very interesting, especially the client that I've actually been working on. When they actually specialize in producing cookies, like I said, one of the highest consumption materials would be the tin cans, right? With quoting on Siaken's information on the QR code, we actually bring this initiative not just from an operational transformation perspective, right? We actually bring in the marketers of the team and say, hey, how can we actually make it more attractive to the consumer? How does the consumer kind of interpret our activities, our actions, and make it worthwhile? And that's when you, as a client, right? For those in the chat, right, in the group right now, you need to be able to actually understand that how the investment that you're doing, can be translated and can be a shared investment that can bring in returns, not just from an operational perspective, not just for logistics, marketing, sales, and customer care. Why? Simple enough. If you actually ask me, the observation that I had, which I sat down with the client itself. When we look at the cookies, we say, hey, we actually have QR code. What does QR code do? It first starts off with tracing where the batch of it from a safety regulation point of view. But then when we look at it and say, well, what happens when they are done using it? Yes, naturally, people from around the world that buys the cookies, we just either throw it in. We'll look at it and say, what happens if we actually make a website or things on an app, for example, that make people actually get competitive and say, hey, we can actually use that code, that same exact theme, right, to actually pass on so that people can actually use them. So that's a form of education and in some ways, to actually promote yourself, not just from a cost efficiency point of view, not just dollars and cents again, but really getting the market to look at it and say, you actually have a leadership footprint, right? And that's where you are indirectly being able to actually kind of influence the regulations and say, hey, this is what we are doing. Let us share with you our success story. So from a carrot and sticks point of view, the sticks would be, well, they may not actually know what to start with, but because you have actually given them a benchmark of what's the minimum and what can be achieved, governments will be able to actually look at it and say, hey, let's try this approach for this industry. Let's try that approach for that industry, and getting the best of it, right? Which in this case, when we look at what Barron's actually done, which we actually focus a lot on cross-platform collaboration. Now we are able to actually understand how each individual resource materials, you actually make the change out of it. How can it actually transfer from one customer to another, and then from there people can actually make modifications. And to Siaken's point, when we actually have different kind of products itself, some people actually make art out of it, and that's something that it kind of goes from just cookies, eating, consumption, to making it competitive, which in this case we're gonna become gamification. Then to the society, we're looking and say, hey, how can we actually build arts and crafts out of the same thing? So there are different ways, but it's more in terms of really, let's look at from a general business point of view, right? And when you bring in different leaders from of a company, so everybody will have a fair share and look at it and say, how can we leverage one initiative, one change to actually make the impact at the company level that the rest of the folks will be able to actually follow through.
Yeah.
If I may
jump, go ahead.
Go ahead, Poyan.
Go ahead, yeah. Oh, I think in terms of stakes, as you said, I want to pick up on that point. In terms of regulation, Dr. Satish may know more regionally about this. In Singapore, Dr. Satish, the stakes are there. I mean, you have a carbon tax, for example. The government already said they're going to revise it in 2023, increasing basically the cost of energy. In my space, there is NEA just launched in Singapore, minimum energy efficiency standards, meaning if you had been smart and invested in energy efficiency before, you do not have to invest more, but if you don't, you have about 4 years time to do massive investment to be compliant with this new law. Do you see the same trend, Dr. Satish, regionally of legislation driving this kind of behavior more in line with ESG? Or is this more a Singapore as a leader in the entire Southeast Asia?
You can actually see it across the region. And recently I was reading an article in India, and they are talking about vehicles which are more than, I think, 15 or 20 years. So if you have to re-register, you have to pay eight times the tax of what you do for a new registration. So I think governments would, continue to put pressure on citizens, on businesses, to ensure that we are moving into that direction where the concepts of sustainability are broken down. It can be related to the environmental aspects. It can be related to energy savings. But I think almost every government in the region is bringing in regulations to increase the overall impact of various initiatives that they are taking.
Okay. I want to jump in here. We talk about government, and also want to bring up another community that's actually very, very interesting. I was born in a recyclers family, so I will go with my parents to collect recyclables during school holiday when I was a kid. So all the Karangunis, all the bio newspaper, that's how we started out. So we go from being the small collectors, mobile collectors, yard owner, processor, and finally aggregate the volume altogether. So in the industry, we call this the informal community. So these are the community that people do not know about. It's not well understood, not well documented, underappreciated, so on and so forth. But in a smart society type of platform, they actually, or we actually have a lot of interesting things to play here. Because of the journey that we've been through, currently we're working with 28,000 independent recyclers, big or small, in Malaysia. So we're talking about, earlier on, Philip was saying that, hey, what are we going to do? Who's going to come in and all that? So we are also in the process of digitalizing the space so that there's also a chance for user to be part of the entire ecosystem and to make all that happen. That domestic network effect, it's very powerful because you can actually leapfrog from a structured type of infrastructure in developing country like Malaysia and other parts of the world, whereby we're suffering from this ocean, we're suffering from this plastic pollution problem. And at the same time, you have this group of informal community that if we were to coordinate these uncoordinated ones, the result that come out from that would be fantastic. And I think this is something that, to respond to what Philip was saying earlier on, once we can bring this, and craft this entire user experience together, and then we will activate, this particular part when it comes to a smart society. And you're right, there are a lot more small pilots that we have done. Same thing. Yeah. The one interesting thing is that if you go to Potato Head in Singapore, you go to all the bar tools, everything is made out of ocean plastic that was actually collected by us. And then that's a whole story behind it, by scanning to the QR code. So that's just some example of things that's already happened in the space.
One of the interesting questions that I'm reading is around business models. So it'll be interesting to hear from all of you. When you look at smart society and its overall development, how will consumers be part of the solution? And what kind of business models do you think will evolve across different areas? It can be energy saving, it can be related to sustainability, implementations of technology. How do you see new business models come into play especially when you're implementing some of these solutions?
No, I think the value of innovation around the business model is highly underrated. As I said, in our space, you have now paid through savings business models that come up. I see sustainability linked kind of products that come up, meaning we go to businesses and say, you need to do this CapEx investment that allows you to be more sustainable. And here are suppliers or debt providers who will adjust their interest rate depending on how much you progress in your sustainability goals. So it becomes a package of hardware investment plus sustainability. I know that has been pushed down to consumer level in some of the countries in Scandinavia, where consumers, a homeowner can get lower debt cost in case they invest in energy efficiency or water saving. And I believe, again, the work that Sia is doing in terms of traceability, I would pay a premium if I knew what I buy is a plastic that's been taken out of the portion. So investment in doing that traceability, I believe, would make sense down the line. But again, I would love to hear whether Philip and Sia can see more of these in other aspects of the society.
Our traceability is one key part of it from an initiative point of view. But again, from a consumer point of view, right, what they will be interested, with regards to, in this case, we've used the example of packaging. It's really more on safety. What's the safety component for the consumers? Is it something that when people are consuming, is it safe? Or is it? So that itself becomes something that they are self-aware and they are able to actually relate to. And as for the different kind of business models, it really depends in terms of for every single initiative that you start with, which in this case, we use the word QR code very often in this conversation. But it really is something that people across different departments, across different market segments, is able to understand and relate to. How do you use the QR code, and from a marketing perspective, right? So you can actually do the right kind of targeted customers and do gamification. How do you actually use the QR code for health and safety issues? How do you use QR code from a production and logistics issue? All these things have different facets of society impact, right? The only question right now is, are we able to actually take this information, demonstrates our financial earnings, right, as a bottom line, and translate it to, hey, what's the sustainability or the longevity or stickiness of the consumer? So that in itself is something that you can look at it and say, hey, what's the modern definition of kind of value proposition that a company bears? And in this case, would actually increase, the long-term traction within the market itself, right? And we're able to actually do that. That's when you are able to actually kind of have a bigger impact towards, influencing other people. In this case, more on the upstream from a manufacturing perspective, right? And also for downstream. Downstream is pretty much easy, especially when you're actually having the direct interaction with the customers, right? The end users. You can actually know what to control and how do you actually drive campaigns. But when you talk about upstream in terms of getting all these materials in the process of actually making it so that it's actually sustainable and the smart society impact can be realized, that's when you need to really do more education and tell them that the impact from a dollar's point of view.
Yep, I completely agree with you on that, Philip. And then now, who decides what to make and how? Now, so in the past, the big brand, the producer, product designer does that. I strongly believe that in a smart society environment, it is the customer or the consumer who actually decides, what to make and how it needs to be made. I'll give you an example. In Europe right now, many of you, go to Europe a lot or dial in from Europe maybe. If you go to the hypermarket store, when you buy eggs, here in Asia, we will have that PET box, that egg cartons that we can see the sizes of the eggs and everything. In Europe, that category has completely wiped out. Consumer rejects plastic and don't want to see that PET box in that hypermarket. So it's all made out of paper. So if we look into industry right now, the entire plastic category, you have that crisis versus complacent. The more complacent one are basically not, do not get so much pressure from the consumer who are rejecting plastic, but those in crisis, basically you're talking about these top 10 food packaging companies. They're getting a lot of stress from the consumer because the consumer are asking for recycled content that fulfills all the safety measure, the certification and all that. So going forward, it is really C to B to B. We are serving customers today that actually are very value-based. You know, they look at the specification of the material divided by the price. So they're very value-driven. But our future customers are very sustainability-based. You know, they're looking about eco-consumerism. It's a whole new ball game because it's no longer a push strategy of that BBC, but rather is that C to B type of environment. So quietly, the entire industry is going through a huge evolution, and I think especially when sustainability meets digitalization, magic happens.
I think we are at the top of the hour, so maybe we can just conclude with some quick final takeaways.
Well, for me, it's like call it smart society or ESG. The writing is on the wall. Either you're a convert and doing it because it's the right thing, and if you're not, honestly, the legislation and your consumer will force you to adopt these. So let's start working towards that.
Philip?
And as for me, I would say, look from the consumer, the end user's point of view first. I mean, the recent information that being posted on Human Resource Online, it says 75% of the global workers are looking to actually work with companies that is actually contributing to to society. So that being said, you just have to kind of look at it and say, what's the topical area that the customers are looking for? Your customers are paying for it, and then reverse from that. That will be the beginning of transformation.
For my side here, we look out for believers. Things that we are seeing, we look out for believers. And then once we actually send out the signal and all that, you will be amazed how quick believers come together and start to put that responsible production, that circular responsible production together. And also by sending out and finding the right believers among the consumer, you will find the eco user like Poya here who actually will pay premium if you can show me the entire ESG impact. And not only I'll pay a premium, I'll stick to this entire business model. So look out for believers.
Yeah. Sure, and I think finally my point is still, the same what I started with. Don't lose sight of the big picture, because that eventually decides what actions you need to take today. So, I think the boat has already sailed as far as the smart society and industry 4.0 is concerned. The sooner that you jump on it, I think the better for your organization. So thanks, gentlemen. I think it was great having this interaction. And let me hand things back to Jane.
Thank you so much, guys, because it gives us so much food for thought, and it's a really great interaction. So thank you again very much for all your comments and insights and the takeaways. So I'm afraid we come up to time. So the audience, please join me in thanking our speakers again. We do hope you found today's session enlightening. Do take a moment also to give us your feedback on the session by completing the audience poll, which you should see popping up in front of you soon. All right, there we go. And a recording of today's session will also be made available on our ITAP Connect website soon. In the meantime, if you wish to reach out to any of our speakers, also find out more about what they mentioned during the course of the discussion, please let us know, reach out to us. And also watch out for our next episode in April, when we will be tackling the topic of Enterprise 5G. So thank you all again for joining us today, and we do hope to see you at our future episodes. Goodbye.